Welcome to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Hey, that's me. Hi, and welcome to Positive Talk. Our show features the best positive stories and people from around the globe as we endeavor to answer the universal question of why am I here and what is my purpose? Understanding that can change everything, and knowing your greatness is fundamental to living your best life. So join us right now as together we work to create the adventure of our lifetime. Well, first of all, I'd like to welcome everybody that is listening from all over the world, whether you're listening now or you're listening later. We've got a great show for you today. We've got a wonderful author, and she's been on the show before, but it's been a couple of years. I don't know where she's been, but she must have been doing something fun. Her name is Vicky McGrath, and she is an author. She's got a brand new book coming out, which I think you're going to turn into multiple books, if memory serves me. And Vicky is with us for the entire hour, and we're going to get you all the information about her website and where you can pick up the book and all of that kind of stuff. So, Vicky, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm terrific. Thank you for having me, Kevin. It's nice to see you again.
It's nice to see you again as well, which means you said again, which means you must be from our Canadian partners up north.
I said again. I didn't say a, though, did I?
Not yet. Not yet. We got lots of time for that.
Still coming.
Exactly. What part of our Canadian friends are you from?
I'm in Ontario, just north of Toronto.
Beautiful area from what I hear. A little cold at times, but you're not going to have a hurricane anytime soon, which is good.
This is true. We are blessed to have very stable weather, whether you like it or not. It's stable.
Well, it's great to have you here, and you know, you got to tell us what you've been doing the last couple of years since the last time you were on the show.
Well, I think probably the last time I was on the show, I was probably still talking about something similar. In 2016, I started a home care business for seniors. And in 2020, with the pandemic, everything kind of went haywire, including my business. And I was at home. Ontario, Canada, particularly, the government's response was lockdown. Basically nobody could go anywhere. And I think a lot of people took that seriously because it was, our civic duty to try to keep the healthcare systems from being overwhelmed. But being in the healthcare industry myself, I just found it very challenging. It was just a very difficult time, as it was for many small businesses. Don't get me wrong, I was not an exception. But, what I found was that being at home for the most part, and my daughter was at home from school. She was taking her school classes online. And it was just a real time of stress and isolation and worry for us, as well as many others. And I really felt like I needed to help myself and my mental well-being. And that's kind of when I turned to the creative outlet of writing. And so the first sort of download, if you want to call it, the creative idea for my novels, Tales from the Clinic, actually came in 2021. And that was really inspired by my need for a creative outlet. My daughter's love of animals and her desire to be a veterinarian, and also our joint love of Harry Potter. And I think that's really what inspired, the fact that my books ended up being tween fantasy graphic novels. I would never in a million years have thought that that's what would come out of any creative outlet, but that's what came out. And so that's really kind of what I've been doing is I've been writing and perfecting and, all of the things that you have to do to actually have a manuscript that's anywhere near ready for publishing. And then I was really lucky to, as you know, probably have found Bob Proctor somewhere around 2021, 2022. And I started working with his longtime student, Peggy McCall, who is an author herself. And Peggy's sister happens to own Hasmark Publishing, which is a hybrid publisher. And so, you know how the universe just aligns the stars, and that's really what's been happening since I saw you last. Writing, preparing my manuscripts, and now getting ready to publish.
You know, it's interesting, and I'm so sorry Bob Proctor's passed now, but that man turned out to be so inspirational to so many people around the globe that it is remarkable to me. There's a gal by the name of, who's been on my show before. Her name is Michelle Blood, and she used to travel with him and did the musical piece for him, and musical affirmations
Yes, in
and
his
that sort
books,
of thing.
I've got them. Yeah. Yeah, I've got the audiobooks for those. Yeah.
Oh yeah, so you've been in the same, you've been traveling in the same worlds that I've been traveling in, and I will tell you, it is a great world to live in, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And, you know, I sort of uh, will always kind of kick myself that I could have had the opportunity to work with Bob, you know, up until his passing. But I think at that time I was still in my fear paradigm and I wasn't ready for that. And so that's why I came to work with his longtime student Peggy McCall instead. You know, I think that really it was just a matter of I wasn't ready to work with Bob at the time, but what actually ended up happening was that Peggy, being an author herself, was really, you know, what I needed to actually develop my books into something that could be published. So yes, Bob, I think I can't even imagine how many people he's touched around the world and still does. I mean, his material is timeless. It's really still very wonderful.
It is a legacy that he's left the rest of us for a very long time. But I wanted to also touch on something that you said. You received a download, and I'd like to talk a little bit about that, because I really believe that all of us have the ability, if we open up to it and we open our heart, and we kind of close off our brain a little bit, that we can actually receive downloads from a different source, from our guides, from our angels. I don't know exactly where they come from, but they do come. And sometimes the most surprising things are generated out of them, like your book series that you're working on. That came from originally a download, but you didn't know how it was going to play out until it did. Is that right?
Oh gosh, you have no idea. I mean, when I say a download, what I get is literally like a picture dropped into my mind, like in full vivid color. And what came through from the first one was a dragon, which I had no idea what the heck that was or what I was supposed to do with the dragon that came through. But you know, I think working with Bob's material, you kind of learn to have a positive attitude and an open mind, and you just kind of continue to allow things to unfold. And as I sort of got the hint that maybe it was meant to be a book, the thing about writing is that, you know, you just kind of start opening up around the edges of what comes through, right? And then as the edges kind of expand a little bit, you can see a little bit more of what's supposed to happen with the story. And I think this is what, you know, this is what happens for many, probably most writers, you know, is that they get the first hit. Either it's a fully formed hit or it's something that has to unfold over time. But I think what happens when people say that you get a writer's block is that you just actually have to give it more time for more information to unfold. And I think that's when, you know, when people are really stressed and they have a deadline or something, maybe it's not so easy. But for me, I didn't have any pressure. I didn't have any deadlines. And every time, you know, I kind of allowed something else to unfold, then, you know, something, a new picture would come in, and I knew that it was for another book and another book and another book. And eventually, you know, it unfolded as seven books in a series. And so, yes, I think you're right. If we can just stay open to what's happening, then we can see what it actually means without having to really, grip on to the how or what it actually is supposed to look like. If you can just allow yourself to relax and let it come through a little bit, I think that's how it can unfold in a natural way.
Exactly. The last time that you and I talked, since then, I've done probably close to 600 episodes. And in that time, lots of authors, lots of musicians, lots of poets, lots of people that are doing things in their life that they had no idea. My favorite example is Sir Paul McCartney. Woke up one day to a song in his head. He had no idea where it came from and had no reference point for it. He took it to John, played it for him. John hadn't heard it. Took it to his producer. He hadn't heard it. Eventually, after a couple of weeks, he took responsibility for it because nobody had ever heard that song, even though he swore that it came from somewhere. So he put words to it. That song became Yesterday, and it has now been copied over 3,000 different artists have done that song, and it was all a download. And to this day, he's 81. He still says, I have no idea. I know where it came from, but he doesn't because in his world, he's not allowed to say that. But I will say this. I think it came from his guides. It came from his angels, and it came for the benefit of humanity.
Right. Exactly.
For
That's
all of us
exactly right.
to take advantage of.
Yeah, I agree with that entirely. That is, if you get something like that, then really it is, it's really what you're here to do is to express it for the world. You're not really meant to keep it for yourself or bottled up or suppressed because you don't know what to do with it. And you just have to kind of get over the fear of
exactly right.
of being a fraud, or the fear of it being so completely outside your normal life. Like really, I mean, how much further outside of an elder care business can a tween fantasy graphic novel be, right? So I
Exactly.
mean, I know exactly what what it feels like to get something and you're just like, what? But if you read about a lot of authors, and being Harry Potter fan, of course I'm a J.K. Rowling fan, and she says exactly the same thing. She was on the train one day commuting, and she just happened to be gazing out the window, and boom, out came from the ether Harry Potter. And she got all 7 books in that one download sitting on the train. And as she says, and if you read anything about her, she says that at that moment, she did not have a pen and pencil or paper, which she almost always carried. So she had to keep it all in her mind until she got somewhere she could write it down. And then she was able to, let it rip once she got somewhere. But I mean, could that be, could somebody more fantastic than Harry Potter have been, formulated in somebody's mind as they're gazing out the window at a train, right? From a train. It's just what you're meant to do if you get that kind of information.
And I think that we all, sadly, a lot of us poo-poo that information. Oh no, I can't do that. I could never write and stuff. That's an interesting idea. And then they immediately forget it, or
Yes.
they don't act on it because
Yes.
their mom said, you can never be a writer. You can't even graduate from English class, and which has nothing to do with anything, by the way.
Well, and if there was anyone to say anything about that, it was Bob Proctor, right? He had 2 months of grade 9 and he was out of there, right? So, I mean, for someone who went on to influence literally millions of people around the world, you can't say that whatever you were told as a young person should be a barrier in your life. And it's just a question of saying, no, that doesn't apply anymore. I'm a new person, and I'm doing this if that's what you want to do.
And the book that you've written, Tales from the Clinic, Tom, and that's the first one of the series, right?
That's correct. And so it is a story of two 11-year-old best friends from birth who help out at their mother's veterinary clinic and get into multi-dimensional adventures with the patients. And so that is the story arc for every story that came through. It's the quest. It's a very straightforward story arc. They have something to do, and they've got to do it. And I think they're all really exciting, and they have the potential to expand even more in different ways. And I like to think that they can expand even more into things like you know, TV or movies or video games or other things that they could expand into. And the fun thing about it is that the vision I got for the books was actually like cartoon, like a cartoons in a comic book. You know what I mean? Like the comic book is what the graphic novel is ultimately going to look like. And so they're individual frames, and each frame has its own little action going on. It's turned out so neat. I can't wait for everyone to see them.
It really is. By the way, who is the illustrator? Who did that for you?
Her name is Nino, and she got set up with me through my publishing with Hasmark. So Hasmark provides everything you need for your publishing journey, and they set me up with Nino, who is a phenomenal illustrator.
Now, in the book in the entire book, it is a tween novel. Describe exactly what a tween novel is.
Well, I call it that because what it's called in the book world is middle grade, and middle grade means 8 to 12-year-olds. But in school, middle grade is actually 6, 7, and 8. So that's too old. So I call it tween because tween is that between sort of age that you're not quite a teenager, but you're not really a kid anymore. You're in that tween stage. So that's why I call it that, because the characters are 11, just like, Harry Potter was 11 when the book started. And, heaven knows why they're 11, but that's how it came out. And so that's why we call it a tween fantasy graphic novel rather than a middle grade, because if it was middle grade, then people might think it was more like young adult. And so it's just a way of specifying the age group.
Well, the really cool part is that there is a lot of talk these days about what's appropriate for kids, what's not appropriate for kids, and there's some book bannings going on and all that kind of stuff. This is actually tailored for that age group that a lot of people are concerned about. So I think it's great that and by the way, I think that was part of your download, that you're supposed to write to this age group.
Yes, I'm sure it was. And I think the nice thing about it is that it's age appropriate. It's themes of love, friendship, bravery. It's about animals and love for animals. It's about science and education. So all of the elements are there for kids to be able to learn and enjoy, and not for parents not to fear that it's going to be something that they shouldn't be reading. And it's a great opportunity for a fun, light, easy read because of it being the way that it's written as the graphic novel in the comic book form.
Well, a lot of people are, comic books are, when I was growing up, comic books were a thing. There was even like Mad Magazine, and there were all of those, and they've kind of gone away a little bit. But I think this is really, it's a great way for kids to enjoy the book in a lighthearted way. Has anybody approached you yet? Of course, the book is just now out.
Not even. Yeah, coming out next month.
What's the release date?
October 22nd.
And you need to, by the way, you're coming back on the show whether you like it or not before the book is released. I will tell our audience that right now because I say it is. So that
okay.
as soon as I get back, I'm taking a little hiatus in the middle of the month. As soon as I get back, God willing, I will we will schedule it for that right when the book comes out, because this is an important work. It is really important for kids. Number one, we are in such a digital age of doing everything that the kids are in so many video games and things that do not require thinking as much. Maybe eye hand coordination it does, but to be reading and to create and to actually live within the fantasy of what you're creating is an important aspect to people's growth, don't you think?
Well, I think just having the opportunity to use your imagination is the key, right? I think when we're in front of a screen all day, we're essentially having information, dictated to us. And so I think part of the experience of reading is that it's in your own mind, right? Just the you make up the voices and the emotions and the characters, and as the reader, right? And everybody reads it a different way. And that's the fun about reading, is that although you're reading about the same character as the person reading about them next to you, the way you perceive them is unique to you. And so I think that's the fun part about reading. And so many fantasy series are just so beloved around, uh, Lord of the Rings, Chronicles of Narnia, the Percy Jackson. There are so many of those fantasy genre novels that have been turned into movies. But before they were movies, they were novels, and they've been beloved for years. And so I think there's something about fantasy as well that really helps people's imaginations develop and grow. And I think that's the fun of reading as well, is the fantasy aspect of it, is that it can really be whatever you perceive it to be.
Well, I agree 100%. By the way, Gowdy says hello,
Hello,
and so
Gowdy.
and thank you for listening, young man. And but I will tell you the importance of, rather than sitting in front of a screen and watching a movie play out, or watching a video game, or doing those things, creating your own imagination, using your own imagination in the creative process, as in, what does that person look like, what do they sound like, how the different aspects of it. You only get that through reading. You don't get that through a passive existence of just watching stuff, rather than like a voyeur. You're actually participating in the creation of it, aren't you?
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think that's why, reading continues to be enjoyable for people. And if you can just find something that you enjoy reading, I think that helps a lot too. And I know, for myself, uh, going to university, I had to read so many books. And honestly, after I left, I could have cared less to have ever read a book again. But uh, over time, I think you do have, like, relationships with characters. Right? I mean, as I said, I'm a huge Harry Potter fan. I loved Harry Potter. I was sad when Harry Potter was over. I grieved the loss of that character from my life. And so I think that's partially why, what came through was what came through for me with the kids and Tales from the Clinic, because it was like, an expression of those characters were, it sort of to fill the void in my life from missing Harry Potter. I think that's yeah, I'm not my novels are in no way like Harry Potter. I just have to be really clear. They could be no further from Harry Potter than they could be. They're short, they're colorful, but nonetheless, it just because it's in that fantasy genre, and it happens to be about 11-year-olds as well. But the fun thing is that, when you're an author, you can reach out to schools and have opportunities to, have schools engage with your book and have them in libraries. And so all of those are really fun opportunities as an author to, expand more kids' minds, I guess, or ability to read your book.
It really is important. By the way, before we get too far and before I forget, which is liable to happen at any moment, I wanted to thank you for working and for working with elderly folks at home. That is a really important piece of who you have become as a person as well. And I want to thank you for that.
Well, thank you, Kevin. It is, you know, something that the world needs, whether we like it or not. We all get old,
No, really?
or the alternative is not that great.
No, the alternative is going to be in the eighth book that you're going to write. Yes, so you've this one is Tales from the Clinic, and you can go to Vicky McGrath author.com and find out all about it. Can they pre-order it yet?
There's no pre-order yet, but what I'm telling people is if there's a pop-up, as there is on every website, and if you join my newsletter, then you will be the first to hear when the pre-launch is available, because there will be a pre-launch and people will be able to get it in advance. And if they sign up for the newsletter, the first thing that happens is they get a fun word search, which they can hand over to any of their little tween friends, and then they will get sort of ongoing exclusive content by being part of my newsletter.
That's really cool. And by the way, the book's going to come out on its way to Christmas, and
That's
so this
right.
would be a great stocking stuffer for somebody of that age. And I would say, wouldn't you say someplace between, oh, I don't know, 6 and 12, depending?
Well, I think probably, if someone has a great imagination, then maybe. But I'm thinking probably it would be more like around 8 or 9 is probably the sweet spot for who would be the right age for the novel. And then, maybe if there are still Harry Potter fans developing, then maybe that age group, the full age group from 8 to 12. But I think, stocking stuffer is a great idea, and any grandparent that's looking for something fun or new for their grandchild that they haven't got yet, I think it'll be perfect timing.
Well, and by the way, Jessica says hello as well, and which is great. And I know I agree, because the one thing that us grandparents have in common, we don't know anything about our grandkids. We don't live with them. We don't know really what they like. We hear things, but opening something up to somebody that's new, that their parents, because I have to remember, parents are young people as well, and they came from a time when books were not really a thing as well. So giving people the opportunity to look at a book, and maybe mom and dad, go read the book to your children together. It's a great time experience for everybody, and you might even be able to answer questions about what's going on in there, and encourage their imagination as well. So I think it's great. It's a great work all around for everybody concerned, don't you think?
Well, I do.
Well,
Naturally.
more importantly, what does your publisher think?
Well, I think, they're excited. I don't think they've ever worked with somebody with my vision for the book. And so I think they're excited to have something new to offer as well. Anytime somebody publishes something unique, then they can claim to have that in their repertoire to offer to other people who might have a similar vision for their book. And I don't think there's a bad outcome for that, right? So they luckily had Nino is an excellent illustrator available to me, but she hadn't done anything like my book, and so it's been a real work for everybody to get through the and having somebody else illustrate your book, they have to somehow, through osmosis, intuitively divine what you expect each scene to look like, right? And so it's kind of an interesting experience as an author to be able to see your vision expressed through someone else's artwork. And, you know, the fun thing about it is that because I'm what's considered a hybrid publisher, so I didn't self-publish, it's going through some, you know, another publisher, Hasmark, but it's still considered what's called a hybrid publishing, in that I keep all of the rights to my book. I keep all of the rights to my illustrations. The illustrations, everything about the books are mine. And so the fun thing about that is that, you know, as I'm looking at the future and the things that I can do going forward with my books is, you know, you hear about people who have had traditional publishing like J.K. Rowling and Harry Potter and all this, you know, they get merchandising deals, they get TV deals, they get licensing and royalties and all of those things. And what I can do all of those things from my own, you know, from my own. I can pitch my work to get licensing for, you know, fun things like when you see backpacks or puzzles or journals or t-shirts or any of those things where you see, like, you know, Batman or all of those merchandising opportunities where you get the illustrations on your out there in the world. So all of those things are still available to me and they're all mine. So I'm free to pitch them. And I only say that because if anybody's thinking about becoming an author, but they think that they have to go through a traditional publisher and that's the only way they're going to be able to move forward, I am here to say that is not true, nor is it necessary that you have to self-publish and do all your own thing on Amazon. You know, there's options out there. And I'm excited about all the things that I can do because I have full rights. You know, I mean, I can do a membership, I can do subscription boxes, I can do everything. So it's fun. It's fun to think about all the exciting things that can happen.
Oh, can I put a little birdie in your head?
What have you got there, Kevin?
Well, what I got here is there are people in our audience saying, you know, I'd love to be an author. But I don't know where to begin. And even if I did begin, then I've got to go to a publisher and I've got to have the editor involved and I have to have all of these things. I don't know how to do any of it. So my hand would immediately go up and say, hey, but I know somebody who does. Her name is Vicky.
For sure.
If somebody wants help with getting started and putting all of these things together so that they can do hybrid publishing or self-publishing and to make it work, can they get a hold of you? Are you available for such things?
Of course. Yeah, they can just reach out to me through my newsletter and or on Instagram. I'm available on Instagram at Vicky.McGrath. So sure, absolutely. I would be glad to help anybody. And certainly I would be biased that I would be pushing, you know, people towards Hasmark because they've been so helpful for me. But I would at least be able to help people understand their options and, you know, give them some guidance for sure.
And just be an affiliate with the publishing company so you get paid a little bit if they go to work with them. Anyway, that's just me. But I wanted to go back.
Not yet. I might have to negotiate that.
I think they'll be happy to do it at one point because you are very, very gifted at putting it all together and including doing the marketing, which is the hardest part that a lot of people have trouble with.
Yes, absolutely. The writing is the fun part. But honestly, you know, and you're absolutely right. There is editing there, you know, but for me, I was really lucky that what came through was pretty pure. And I guess I'm lucky that I have the ability to write it out in a way that it came out of my mind. So the editors actually didn't really have that much to do for me, but just another plug for Hasmark. Hasmark does that. They have the editor. They take your manuscript. They shop it to their editor. The editor goes through it and gives you back your edits. You have full control over whether you like them or not. You know, if you don't like what they've said, you could say, no, I like mine better, or whatever you like. And then they can take you through the, you know, once you've got your polished manuscript, then they take you through the next steps. So I think the bottom line is that, you know, the process is there already and nobody has to try to figure it out themselves or get scared by it. It's just, but the marketing, you do actually have to do yourself. The marketing is you cannot leave it to chance. You just absolutely cannot leave it to chance. And it is an investment. It's not, you can't do everything for free. You have to invest in your success and the success of your books. And that is just something that I would put out there for people to, don't just think that you're going to be able to get on a podcast and that's going to be everything you need. You really have to work hard. You have to pitch. You have to send out press releases. You have to find, I'm sending letters to Dr. Pohl and Dr. K and Dr. Oakley, the Yukon vet. I'm not leaving anything to chance. I'm sending them letters and I'm saying, hey, I would be delighted to come to your location and bring you a copy of my book. Honestly, I'm not kidding when I say these things. I am doing all of these things because I want my book to be, somehow related to the veterinary world, because that's what the book is based around. And so I have to guide those steps. I have to take it in the direction that I want the book to go in. I can't just let it go willy-nilly to wherever it goes in Amazon and hope that that's going to be the way it goes, right?
No, I agree 100% with one minor exception. And that is this, is that for those of you at the beginning of the show, we were talking about Bob Proctor. Bob Proctor was one of the premier people that were in The Secret. He is somebody who is the law of attraction was very, very important to him, as it is. And by the way, so when you say you were lucky, I don't believe that for a minute. It was predestined that this is what you would do, and you're just following up with what it was. As Bob Proctor would, I'm sure, tell you, is that you were destined to do this. Luck had very little to do with it. Would you agree with that?
Well, I think it just goes back to, when you make your own luck, right? Like, I think
That's exactly right.
I agree with that entirely, that the universe was demanding expression through me. Everybody gets ideas, but they can't be expressed unless somebody physically does something with them, right? And so I think that's the part where what Bob would say is that you get the idea, but nothing happens with it if you just keep thinking about it. You actually have to do something with it for it to become in the physical realm. And that's simply the case with everything in our world today. Everything that is in our world today was at one point a thought or an idea of somebody's mind. I don't want to start wherever it started, but somebody thought about something and wanted it to be better. And so they created something better. And that's just how it goes, right? That's just the way life is.
Just thinking about it, can you imagine how frustrating it is if you are somebody who's been tasked on the other side with creating new ideas for people? So you give these ideas to people and they poo-poo them and they have to go to another person. And so by the time they get somebody who actually listens and wants to act on the idea that they're presenting, they must be like, woohoo! It must be like a sales guy getting $1 million client that he's been working hard on.
Jackpot.
Finally hit the jackpot. And so because it would be so frustrating to put out these great ideas and to have people go, yeah, well, I don't know. And
but you hear about that all the time, right? You hear like simple things that you see in the world, and you think, and somebody else says, hey, I thought of that, or I could have done that. And yeah, if you had thought of it and if you had done something with it, then you would have done it. But if you did think of it, then you didn't do anything about it because someone else did. And so I think that's just that just goes to, if you get inspired, if you get a creative download, if something comes to you, just do your best to do something with it. And don't feel like you have to know the whole path or what it's going to turn out like. I certainly had no clue what this was going to all turn out like. But if you just, follow your heart and feel excited and inspired by it, then that's what that creative idea was meant to be.
Vicky, I often tell people that this happened to me totally by accident.
Being the host.
Doing what I'm doing with the radio show happened absolutely by accident. because I was talking with a friend that we were going through meditation classes and that sort of thing. And he came to me real excited one day and said, "We should do a television show." Excuse me. We should do a television show. And I said, I don't know. We could look and see. And so I looked, and we couldn't do a television show, but we could do radio. And so we bought a couple hours on a local radio station. We started talking about meditation and, psychic mediums and lions and tigers and bears and all that kind of stuff. And it evolved over time into this, that I've now got over 1,200 shows, and I've been doing this a while, because this was what I was born to do. This was my destiny, or my density, as it, but this was what I was born to do. And so it culminates with being able to have Vicky McGrath on the radio everywhere that this is going, and talk about her new book, which is called Tales from the Clinic, Tom, a tween fantasy graphic novel. And you can go to VickyMcGrathAuthor.com. You can sign up for her newsletter. The book's coming out in October. If you're listening to this before October or during October, go there. If it's after October, I'm sure it will be out everywhere.
Yes. So it should still be available on my website. I should have a direct link from there. But then, of course, Amazon, Indigo, wherever you would buy your books. Almost all books are online now. Like they're not necessarily on shelves, but you can buy them pretty much anywhere.
I would ask a favor, a personal favor, not from you, but from the audience and from the people that are listening, is that if you are in a small town, or if you're in a big town, but you know of a local bookseller who is a mom and pop. What I mean by mom and pop is somebody that is not Barnes and Noble, is not Amazon, but somebody that is trying to make a living on a neighborhood basis by selling books locally. Go to them and ask them to order the book and buy it from them, because we need to keep the medium alive. We need to keep mom and pop booksellers alive. Do you agree with that? I know you do.
Yes, of course. Well, as a small business owner, I'm always supporting small businesses. So absolutely 100%. And I would also really love to invite anybody who would be interested in having me come and do outreach at their school, or help them with any of their classes, or read at their event, or, if there are vets out there who would like to, talk to me about how I might work with our clinics to have my books in their clinics. I've had ideas about how, maybe my books could be in vet clinics and they could use them as a fundraising opportunity. Their patients could buy the books, and then the funds from the books could go towards, pet care for people who are not able to manage, or, seniors who are on fixed budgets. So I have lots of ideas about how I might be able to, of course, expand the reach of my book, but also partner with schools and libraries and vets and, vets are in a lot of places. So we think about them as, dogs and cats, but vets are in zoos, vets are in aquariums, vets are in, safaris. So vets are in a lot of places. So I would love to be able to continue to develop that aspect of the book being based in a veterinary clinic.
By the way, and I don't know, because we haven't talked about this before, but is your daughter still interested in being a vet?
She is at third year university in McGill, which is in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. And she is still planning on being a vet. I ask her every year, is this still what you want? Is this still the thing that's, the only thing that you want to be? And every year she's still going for it. So after third year, she can actually apply to veterinary college here in Ontario. It's called the Ontario Veterinary College. It's one of the best. And so she's excited. She's excited to be applying. She's worked really hard in school to have really good grades, and she has done she has worked with horses and animals, I think, gosh, since I think she was 11 herself. So she's really worked hard to make herself someone who can become a vet. And I think that's the other thing too, right? Is that you have to have persistence and determination if you want to succeed in whatever it is that you're doing.
You do indeed. And veterinarians have got an extra thing going on in that they not only have to develop a good relationship with the animal, but also with the pet parent, and to work with them, and to have a real positive attitude, because there's some things that happen to our pets, as an example, when we have to have them put down, that it requires a special touch that I'm pretty sure I could not do.
It's so
But
true. Yeah, it's so true. And, they have to go from patient to patient, just like doctors do, from patient to patient, except that their patients are most often not able to communicate what their challenges are. And they have to go to the next patient and still manage the person who loves that little pet, or companion animal. And yeah, it's a unique place to be as a veterinarian, that's for sure.
now I got to ask you, because you're just in the middle of this wildly fantastic adventure, which you are creating for yourself. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And where do you see it? You're going to write 7 books. They're going to be a cartoon series that's going to be on TV, and you're going to be doing a lot of stuff. What else are you going to be doing to make yourself, and to honor your commitment to your mission?
Well, I have lots of great ideas. I was actually just had a meeting earlier today with a wonderful person who has a studio and does recordings and productions. And so the next step will be audiobook. That's what she feels is probably the best outcome for the next step, would be the audiobooks for the books. And then we're going to start working on, sort of curriculum based educational partnerships, because I guess in the STEM or STEAM world, there's a lot of opportunity for kids to see how they can basically apply STEAM in real life, right? And so being an author, a small business person, someone who's creating my way, what are the things that I have used to get there, and what are the things that are in my books, associated with veterinary science, that we can use to make sort of into educational content. But then, of course, I really have a dream to make them into actual cartoons, like TV cartoons on TV, and if at all possible, movies. I think that would be a lot of fun to have movies as well. Of course, you can always dream big and think that, maybe Disney would want a Tales from the Clinic theme park. Everybody would go and test out their veterinary medicine and interact with the patients. And of course, one thing that I really do think I have is a membership, because one thing that I feel is often missing, in a lot of these sort of fantasy genres, where you're excited about the books and you're really committed to the characters, like Harry Potter or Percy Jackson or Chronicles of Narnia, is that there aren't, other than social media, there aren't really a lot of ways to engage with other readers. And so what I feel is kind of missing would be like a membership, where you would almost have like a community of readers. Of course, it would be based on my books, but really it could be, young fantasy readers from all over who could come together and just in general discuss, having their love of fantasy, have games, we could do contests, we could have reader theater, we could have productions. So that's what's on my mind, is how I could make it into a membership and have it open to, sort of more of a community environment.
I think that's a brilliant idea, because post-COVID, there's a lot of folks that never went back to their previous life after COVID. And so there are a lot of folks that are lonesome. They don't have the same connections that they once did. And so developing a sense of community is so vital in this day and age, because so many people feel like they're all alone.
Yeah, and I think that was what inspired me to start writing, was just that exact feeling of isolation and the anxiety of wondering how you're going to be able to interact with somebody the next time. Right? And I, like I'm sure many people did, got a puppy the day before COVID closed everything down around here. So we got our puppy on March 13th, 2020, and March 14th, 2020 in Ontario was when COVID lockdown came into effect. And so that poor puppy, he's also got social anxiety because he didn't have anybody to interact with either, right? He was stuck with us the whole time. He couldn't even interact with other dogs.
What kind of puppy did you get, by the way?
So we could have a COVID puppies.
Yeah,
we got a whippet.
Exactly.
A whippet, which
exactly.
is like a
what
small
kind of dog is he?
Yeah.
Oh,
he's
a big dog.
A whippet.
Oh,
he's 20 pounds. He's medium sized. Yeah.
And I'm sure he loves you to death.
Well, I'm sure he does. He doesn't have much choice, does he?
Well, I used to be on a show that featured an animal behavioralist, and she'll tell you there are lots of dogs who wish they lived somewhere else.
Yeah, I'm sure that's probably true.
Because their parents just aren't very nice to them.
Yes, I'm sure that's true. And but I do feel like that happened for a lot of people. A lot of people got puppies to help with the feeling of isolation, and the kids too being home from school. I think a lot of people got puppies to help give them some meaning and contribution to some other form of life, right? And I think that's why having the novel series and all of the the things that I can do as adjuncts with the novel series will really help to bring people together with something that they can share with each other as well, as build imagination and creativity and all of those things.
Yeah, what's sad about all that is it's one of those unintended consequences that you had you had COVID, and then everybody said, well, we can't go out, but let's get a dog.
Yeah.
And they get a dog, and now that they can go out, they say, why did we get the dog?
I know.
And then, so the shelters are now overflowing with dogs because people are now being able to go out to their regular lives.
Yeah, well, and to be fair, a lot of people probably either lost their jobs or changed jobs or had to change jobs, throughout COVID. And a lot of people were probably working from home or staying at home, and then they couldn't, right? They couldn't anymore. They had to go out and figure out how to make a living. And so there are some people that it's just not something that they can do anything about. It's just unfortunate. But I agree with you now that there's lots of pets out there that need to be adopted.
So your book, the first book, by the way, Tales from the Clinic, Tom, a tween fantasy graphic novel, is coming out in the end of October, 2024, which is this year. They go so
I
fast.
hope so.
Vicky, they go so fast.
I know. You're not telling me anything I don't know.
I was doing a show earlier today, and I said, way back in 1916, wait a minute, 2016, and because I was only born in 1915, so and but times they keep on progressing, they keep on moving forward. So go look at our website, join the newsletter, and then you can get updates on when the book's going to be out, and then you can get the book. And I suggest you buy it from her. I think you make a little bit more money that way, and if possible, and authors sadly they don't make a great deal of money based upon what they work so hard at their books. They spend hours and hours and hours, and sometimes they don't make any money doing it. And so you need to make a good living from this.
Well,
Promise.
there that you can say that, but honestly, if there's a J.K. Rowling in the universe, then it is available to anybody. It is there. She does not have the monopoly on a fantastic author life. It is also available to me. It is available to you. It is available to everyone. If there's another person on the planet who has done it, and even if there isn't, if you can dream it, you could do it.
Thank you, Bob Proctor. No, I'm kidding. But that is exactly true. And just in story, and just briefly, there was a gal that came on my show. She's written 4 books in like 5 months, and she got started. She's an orthodontist by trade, and she got started by one day at 4:00 in the morning. She heard a voice, "Get up and write." She had no idea where that voice came from, and so she got up and looked around, and there was nobody in her house. She called her therapist, and her therapist said, "Well, did you start writing?" So she wrote from 4 to 5 a.m. for 18 months in a row and came up with 4 different books, and they're doing really, really quite well. So don't poo-poo that. If at 4:00 in the morning you get this message, like, or go pick up a guitar or go do whatever it is, just don't argue with it. Go do it, and you'll be amazed.
Yeah. And it can come in different ways. I also, every once in a while, get the voice, which is, I think when you get the voice, you've really ignored every other sign. And the voice is just like, this is what's got to happen, person. Just get with the program.
Yes. So what's the other voice you've heard?
Oh, I get that all the time. Like I've had that voice come through. I can't even think of an example, but I have had that voice where I've, just been like thinking that something is this way, and it's really just not that way. And so that's the only way. But for me, when I say I got the book downloads, as I say, it was literally pictures just dropping into my mind, like full color pictures of the characters. And so that, that her getting that message at 4 a.m, that she had probably had other things, other downloads, other creative inspiration, but she'd just not known what they were or hadn't done anything about them. And so then the voice came along, and it was like, okay, that's this is what you got to do, Lade.
She was an orthodontist. She had 30 employees and was working 60 hours a week. Vicky McGrath, thank you for being here. You're going to be on again, I promise, and before the book comes out. And is there anything else you'd like to add before we go real quick?
I would just really like to thank you for having me, and I would encourage everyone to please check out my website, VickyMcGrathAuthor.com, sign up for my newsletter, and I will let you know when the book is ready to come out.
Thank you so much, and we're going to see you again real soon.
Thank you, Kevin, for having me.
You're more than welcome, and get the book, Tales from the Clinic, Tom, when it comes out. Thanks again, and we'll be in touch. Thanks for listening to this episode of Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Our purpose is to provide everyone with a positive, entertaining, and educational experience. I would love your feedback and comments about the show, including possible topics and great guest suggestions. Please email me at kevin@kmmedia.pro. And remember, be kind to one another, because each other's all we've got. That's Kevin@kmmedia.pro.